Hi, I'm Ron Burgess,
And I'm Brandon Burgess,
and we're Burgess Brothers Racing.
and we're Burgess Brothers Racing. I didn't do that.
All right. Welcome to our first long form video. It's going to be more of a podcast format. If you guys like it, please let us know. And if there's topics that you guys want us to talk about, we'd love to hear about it. This is kind of an experiment, and we're just hoping we make content you guys enjoy and that we can build a community and have some fun. Uh, so, first off, we're just going to talk about who we are and where we come from and why you guys should watch us. So, back in 2005 and 2004, actually, uh, I had my first racing experience. So it's been a while. It was a full size V8 Enduro on a circle track. It did not go well. I ended up wrecking the car. I don't think it was my fault. He was there. He saw it. I was coming in to turn one. Somebody dropped a bunch of fluid on the track. I don't think I would have hit the wall.
You would have went off the track significantly. You did.
But there was some room there.
Yeah, a little bit of a buffer in the grass. Um, you could tell too right away when you hit something that someone had clearly dropped some radiator fluid, whatever they had, probably coolant because it didn't look like water when you hit it.
No, and if you guys don't know, you're not supposed to run coolant on a track. It is slick as hell, way worse than water, and it's harder to pick up. Um, but I saw it in my head as I was coming towards the tire wall that I was going to miss it, and then somebody lifted up my back end and dove me straight into it.
Yeah, that was not the finest moment for the old 4X, but we get used to Dad. He has some sort of sixth sense, innate ability to avoid accidents, even when it's somebody coming from behind him.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it was really not anything you could have done anything about. I mean, he just came in hot and decided to use you as a barrier instead of the wall.
Yeah, which is how it goes sometimes.
And I think he drove away, right? He pinned you
Oh
up
yeah,
against the wall
oh
and
yeah, he
took
took
right
off.
off.
He had a big steel bumper.
He could have had a vendetta too against the car, before you got in it. We really never visited that.
And then the next year was 2005 that you drove that car.
Yep, turned
Um,
16.
he
Dad
did
went.
much better.
If you look at my lines, it's cringy to come back and look at because everyone said, hey, it's loose. We set it up loose. It's gonna drift up the track. So when I was coming out of the corner and not giving it full throttle, I was kind of like turning almost and making it go up towards the back stretch wall, the front stretch wall, and it felt like natural in the car. I didn't feel, but watching my first 10 laps, it looks like I was trying to make a trapezoid out of an oval track. But yeah, I think I started 21st and had to come in the pits after a wipeout after whacking the wall pretty good, and still ended up 13th.
All
But
right, so I do have to tell everybody he he came in a little hot coming off turn four,
came
and
out a little hot. Yeah,
his back end slid in and tagged the wall, which sucked his front end in. Hit pretty
it
hard. Um,
whiplashed the front end. I feel like it felt like in the car that it picked at the front end and smacked it in the front because straight wall, straight car. When you hit the rear, there's nowhere to go but flush and flush.
So he didn't even make it a lap around. As soon as he felt that, he just drove it straight in and
The
into
pitch
like.
just so happened to be straight shot. Couldn't really turn off the wall anyway, so I was like, "Here we go."
So I could tell when he came in, he was white as a ghost.
Yeah, well, I thought
He
I
had
had
thought he had just
wrecked the
totaled the
car
car. Um,
because it felt like a hard hit.
being being in a race car too, for anybody that doesn't know, you take out all the comforts and your seat is bolted to the roll cage. The roll cage is welded to the car, so any little bump you feel it. Like in a normal street car, you're gonna have like a little bit more crush, and
Well, you have
there's
sound deadening material. You have, a carpet underneath it. You have,
well even the padding in the seat
yeah,
to
and you're
lessen the
also
impact.
not, your floor pan isn't generally 2 inches off the ground either. Maybe some cars, but yeah,
But
you lower the car. You basically turn it into a closest thing you can get to a go kart with a little bit of floor pan.
so yeah, he came in, and you could tell he thought he wrecked it. And to kind of explain a little bit more, both of us too, before we had these racing experiences for the first time, we were driving little front wheel drive cars around. Eventually, we got rear wheel drive cars that we were driving, but not for our first race.
The thing is, I did have a Ford Focus that, treated like a race car, beat the snot out
Daily
of it.
driver.
First, second, and third, the thing, sounded pretty good. The little 2 liter Z-Tech motor beat the piss out of it. But
So
yeah, I
yeah,
was a little bit used to rear wheel drive, but obviously not used to coming out of a banked corner, full throttle.
yeah,
And,
it's
and
different.
also, if I had hit that wall with a front wheel drive car, with a unibody car, I would have thought something tweaked, the subframe, something crucial. With a full frame metric chassis G body, GM, it bent the fender a little bit,
Yeah, and that's basically what happened. So he comes in, he pulls it right off a pit road, and I just go over to it, and I've done it 1,000 times when my dad was driving. Just assess the car real quick and see what it needs just to get back out to the
So
race.
it's a little backhanded comment against dad. I've done it 1,000 times when my dad was driving, every race, straighten something out.
uh, so I go over, see it's just the fender's just into the tire a little bit.
You didn't go over. You came through like a Scooby Doo movie and skidded to a halt in the gravel pits about 6 feet and just yanked on the fender and then started slapping the top of the car. And I'm like, what? What? Yes, I know I fucked up. And you're like, go, 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 go. I'm like, what? What? I'm like, Ron, the car. And you're like, no, go, go, go. And I'm like, no, Ron, the car. I don't know if you saw, but I just hit the wall. There's no way you saw because you were already in the pits when I got here. And you're like,
Yeah,
I saw it. It's fine. You're good. It's not going to cut the tire. It's not rubbing. And that was, I'm like, rubbing. I'm like, what do you mean? The whole freaking car is bent like an L. I thought the thing, because we've seen some cars and that came in and the whole rear was stoved in, a 25,
yeah.
30-degree angle to the left. That's what it felt like to me but, looking back, just barely tapped the bumper and it was really the front that brought,
That
but
just slapped
luckily
it. I mean, you
it wasn't the front. It
definitely
was the whole rest of the car.
took the toe out of the car, and
Yeah.
the camber probably was out of adjustment.
What's
But
odd is it felt to me that it handled better after that. But I think I just,
so that is actually another perfect topic for another one:
yeah,
is wrecking a car the right way.
yeah,
There are definitely times that you could bend something, and it makes an improvement on the handling of the car.
yeah. And
But
I think it probably took a little bit. I don't know if it was tightness or looseness or what, but taking that out, for some reason, it felt like I could dive into the corner better after, or I was just not as afraid of hitting the wall. Because then I knew, okay, as long as I don't hit it in that same manner
I think
where
taking
it
the
takes the
fear out
rear,
of it,
yeah,
uh,
I'm like,
you can
well, now
push a little
now the
harder.
car's fucking away, so send it.
Yeah. Uh,
Because before send it was a thing, but
but yeah, and then he finished the race, and what you said 36? I think that's not even a correct number.
36. No, I think I started 21st, and even after being off for a lap because it was an enduro race, so there was basically the top 5 or 10 were probably lapping everybody, but I believe I got 13th at the end of it.
Okay, out of 36
That's
cars, maybe.
oh maybe, but really, I don't know if there was 36 cars. I thought there was.
It was almost a full
I
field.
thought I wanted to start in the back, and then all of a sudden, like a bunch more cars came on, and I was like, "Oh no!" But now I'm on the outside in the middle, like dead middle of the field,
Yeah.
and they just thrown a green flag, and I was like, "Okay, let's go." But it did feel because I think the next time the leaders came up on me when I came back out, it felt like for a couple of laps I was running with them, or
Yeah.
they
No,
couldn't
it
catch the
looked good.
car. And we had a car that was set up for the track. We had my dad who had 10, 15 years of experience racing that specific circle track. He had set it up with a couple of guys, Bill Meany and some guys around the local track that really knew their stuff. And he has had uncles that race. He's had his whole family involved in it, and he won't admit it, but he knows his stuff with a rear wheel drive, especially a G body or Camaro,
Yeah. And
standard chassis.
he's also really good of getting junk to work that shouldn't. Um,
Yeah,
we've never really
he's
had
cheap.
a huge budget, especially him. We are like the epitome of budget racing with most of our projects. Um,
It almost should be Budget Brothers Racing.
I like it. But so yeah, that was a little bit of our first forte into racing, and I definitely got the bug. Unfortunately, it was stalled out because the next year, um, my dad let me race it again, and I don't know if that was the year he was second in points. So he let us go out at the last race of the year.
Yeah, there was just going to be no movement points
Yeah,
wise,
he
regardless of whether he won and the first place guy points lost or didn't
yeah
even
he was
show up.
already locked into
Yeah,
second.
it was like 50 points, I think, to win or something, and then and he
He was
was
like
basically
54 points out.
yeah, and the guy behind him was like 78 points behind him. So
Yeah. So they call that grudge night. It's usually everybody is locked in. Sometimes it's not even a points race, but basically you have the whole off season to rebuild the car. So on short track racing, people might have a little bit of a grudge against somebody else that rubbed them the wrong way most of the season, and they'll try to take them out. And it doesn't matter if you wreck your own car because you have the whole off season to work on it. So that was probably against us because guys drive overly aggressive. Um, in retrospect, my dad knew that was a mistake. He probably should have had us out on the first race of the
well,
year.
yeah, I mean, honestly, every night in that enduro class back then seemed like it could be turned into a grudge night. Guys getting off the track, having tires down, putting slicks on, coming back out, so that right front is just gonna stick, and then they just so happen to dive into a corner and smack into the guy that took them out.
Yep.
It wasn't a nightly thing, but it was once a month. You'd get a little revenge tactic going on like that, and some of these guys had a stupid amount of money for what we would think a stupid amount of money into their cars and engines and
Well, we
full
do
frame
know
off.
a couple guys. We're not going to mention names. We're not here to call anybody out. But had like $10,000 late model engines in their
Yeah,
cars.
and a lot of them would just if they had a buddy in late model street stock whatever wasn't running that week, they just pop the motor out, put it in their car, and or they had family visiting from New York or something,
I wanted to do good.
and you just want to do good. Yeah, they'd put a 383 stroker in the thing, and just hope that what they checked that night was window net dates or something
Yeah.
stupid like that. And often the track did that, even though you could plain as day hear someone coming down the backstretch with a 150 horse. Um, it's funny because there's times we'd pull into the track and alone late models out there just doing some hot laps because they have garnished some favors with the track over the years, and then you got a new car they're testing out, and it's a pretty you know it's a sound
Distinctive.
that, yeah, distinctive sound, and I mean, you can hear it literally pulling in from the main road on the track, and there are some cars out there that made that whole enduro group sound just like that. You drowned out everyone else, and his pipes coming out the side, coming down the backstretch were just like sounded like a freaking NASCAR engine going down.
I remember a couple of those
Yeah,
guys passing me, and it almost sounded like your car shut off.
yeah, oh yeah. No, I had to when I spun. I honestly still don't know when I spun out coming out of two. I didn't so spun out when someone forcibly spun me out coming out of two.
When you got spun,
Um, Yeah, because like I said, I was already coming out of the corner and like making room anyway, and I went to come out of the corner and make room, and someone still chased me up and
yeah.
spun me around, pit maneuvered me. I still don't know if the car was actually off. I probably could. I mean, it was an automatic. It didn't necessarily stall just because. And I think I
That
remembered
one
keep.
usually would.
Yeah, well that's the thing too. Yeah, with the camshaft we had in that, I think it didn't like to go in reverse while you were, in a forward gear.
Didn't like
But
idling.
it could have stalled. But think if you look at the video, I was spinning tires as I was in the infield,
Yeah.
trying to do a full 360 and then take back off. But I just couldn't tell because there was so many loud cars that night.
So yeah, my second time in the car actually went worse. Everybody tells me I did better, but I was coming off a
It was
four.
until that moment. You know, it honestly, if you had looked at it, you'd be hard pressed to just tell that Dad wasn't in the car that time. I mean, it was the line was there, the speed was there. I do believe too, where I don't exactly remember where you started out, but when the leaders, the top 3 or 4 cars came around, you were running with them for a while. You know, it wasn't like they were lapping. Like
Yeah.
I think even when they passed you, I believe you were like picking back up on them because you guys were all in traffic, and that's been a something that we found out a little later. You know, not so much when we were doing those races at Monadnock, but when we started doing Lemons races, we kind of realized that we were in our element, both of us, when we were in traffic.
Yeah.
Something that a lot of guys dread, coming up on lapped cars. We were just like, cool, now we can make up some ground, and maybe that's because we don't always have the budget. We don't always have the motor we're supposed to have.
I think
You
that's
know,
that's a huge thing for
yeah,
us is never having the fastest car. We've had to make up for it in other ways, and we'll overdrive the car, um, which works for shorter races. We found out, and we'll talk about that later
yeah,
too. About it doesn't work so much in endurance racing because you burn up your stuff real quick. But in a 50 lap enduro race, yeah, or even a 25 lap race in other classes, the traffic always helps us because it slows them down way more than it seems to slow us down, so we
yeah,
can catch up. Um, but yeah, so I was coming hot off turn 4, and further down the straightaway, there was a guy that just wiped out, and he was stopped dead sideways. I went to go high, but one of the things that happens in enduro races, especially, is people mirror drive, whether they're afraid to get run over from behind or they're just trying to block. So the guy next to me was definitely in his mirror, and so when I checked up and went to go right, he hit the throttle, even though there's nowhere to go. So I didn't even have time to try to go left. So I just slammed on the brakes, locked it up. I remember thinking too, like, hey, I'm barely going to hit this guy, and I think the car will be fine. And then the last thing I remember is hearing one of those late model engines. That's it. And
oh,
then the
and
next
everyone
thing I
else.
remember, I was backwards on the track, and it was red flag, and a official was asking if I was all right.
So I thought it was already a red flag.
No, they
No,
once well, I watched
oh
the
good
camera
lord.
once. So basically, what happened?
I thought you were coming to a stop on the straightaway, and that guy did not come to a
I
stop.
was locked up, but the guy behind me, another guy that was clearly in his mirror, full throttle, must have been going 70 plus, drove through my car, pushed my car through the car in front of me, and my car ended up like almost in the infield
That car in
backwards.
front of you almost ended up in the infield as well.
Yeah.
I mean, he was sideways, I think, facing the wall.
So basically, as soon as because you see the flagman in the video, as soon as he saw the hit, he reaches over, didn't even go yellow, and
Okay,
threw the
so
red
that's why I thought he
flag.
was like already ready to throw a red flag because
Yeah.
I didn't remember exactly what was already happening on the track. But those can get a little hairy. I mean, it can kind of be like a lemons race where it's like, yeah, turn 7, there's something going on. You got to slow down there. Turn 11, there's something going on. So with those enduro races, it was like, okay, someone just tagged the wall coming out of 2, and okay, they're not started right now. Someone just went through the infield and cut from the back stretch to the front stretch, and some of those with 30, 40 cars could get there's multiple things. You don't even know what the caution's coming out for, if there was a caution or a red flag. I mean, usually it was someone flipped over, someone completely like immobile directly across the track on the front stretch, and that's the only. And even then, they'd give it a few seconds, and you could see the flag guy, going to the guy, come on, like, get it started. And it's like, dude, what do you want me to do? I'm facing the wrong way. Like, what do you want to get it started? What do you want me to put it in reverse and take off? But yeah, that car was wrecked. That
Totaled.
was
Totaled.
something we'd never really seen. The whole front frame rail was completely kinked. It wasn't really something that even with cutting and welding. I mean, I guess you could have cut and welded a new frame rail, but that's not normally where you do it. You normally do it like right
No.
out in the front.
So
This was
if you're wrecked in front
integral.
of the tires or behind the tires, you can usually fix the car. You can straighten the frame. You can put new clips on. That actually had bent the frame behind the tires. So I don't know if you
Yeah,
remember the full extent of it, but so not only did it knock me out, and this is why safety equipment is important and being fit for the car is important. My dad has much broader shoulders than me, so the seat belts were set up a little bit more him. So even fully tightened, I had about I don't know, less than a half inch of room in my shoulders. So when I got hit, that half inch drove me forward into him, and it was enough momentum that it actually wrecked my shoulders to this day. I didn't realize it, and I didn't try to get it fixed early enough. But I only have 50% mobility in my shoulders. I can't raise them straight above my head anymore. The frame rail had bent behind the tire and had pinned my left leg between the steering wheel and the frame. Um, I mean, I had lacerations from the seat belts. I had bruises on my palms. I had chipped a bone in my knee. My ankles were messed up. My hips were out of whack. My back was out of whack. And yeah, I had a mild concussion from hitting. Well, the funny thing is too is if you look at the scrape marks on the helmet, I hit the helmet on a roll cage that I shouldn't have been able to reach. Like that's how much my body contorted in the accident because I was inches away and somehow still managed to hit it. So yeah, safety equipment is important. But yeah, that car was so wrecked that we retired it, junked it, and then we just didn't have it in us at that time to build another one. So we took about 11
Oh,
year
that was we had
break.
just built that car the year before. Yeah, the
Yeah,
guy that hit you was definitely running some illegal mods, and guys have.
as well as I think he had reinforced his front end. So in
Oh
this
yeah,
class too, you were only supposed to have a 4 point roll cage. You're not supposed to have a front clip roll cage or rear. But he definitely had some welded
oh yeah. He had like
pieces of bar in
a
that front end of
14
that
point
car
cage.
because
Yeah,
he drove on.
yeah. Well, that car had been through some stuff before. Other cars, it had been T-boned other cars and damn near split them in half and driven out. And that was the one car too, where the rear end of it would be cocked out like this, but somehow the tires are still straight. And
Yeah.
he's driving under his trail the other night and barely straightening it out for the next week. And you're like, what the hell? Thing's built like a tank inside.
So that was our little circle track experience, and then because I wrecked the car. Yeah, like I said, we took a 11-year break, and then that's when we started our forte into the 24 hours of lemons, um, and that is a whole different experience. We first got an '88 Mazda MX-6 GT that we legit bought for 500, and
Yeah.
we'll have a whole, if not multiple, discussions and videos about the lemons racing, and our cars in that, and deep dive
We
into it.
got
Got a 1995 Lexus SC400 that we're currently working on, and we're trying to do this build right.
always working on it.
Uh, and then back in what 2022, 21, I went back to Monadnock Speedway in the pure stock division just to get my feet wet, um, and ran a '05 Honda Civic LX that was very much under horsepowered, but I still managed to get a couple top fives into it. And that was really a budget car.
So yeah, you got it for free. Um, Thanks for us at Meineke. You get that
Yes.
car free. Roll cages are not free, but started off with a solid base, and we had talked to a lot of people, through lemons and stuff, and they were like, die hard, just buy a Honda and run laps. And that's
Yep.
instead of trying to get something faster that handles, or just get something that'll turn laps and get experience and seat time. And that was kind of the thought behind that Honda, and it was fairly competitive when you started. And just as is the luck we have, the class kind of turned into an all-out warfare. And
It definitely took off. The original rules were the no sport models of your car. So you couldn't have any SIs or GTs or Type Rs. But they kind of opened Pandora's box because somebody came in with a built one and they didn't want to turn them away. And that was just running away with the division. Everybody started
turned it into an arms
modifying
race.
their cars,
Yeah.
we'll say, to keep up. And the class got a little out of hand, which is kind of where it is right now.
From what I saw, on Marketplace, I like to just peruse that at night when I'm bored instead of watching trash TV. So I just, the wife sits there and watches Real Housewives, and I'm on Marketplace looking at things I'll never buy. So we're both pretty much into, reality that isn't reality. She's watching reality TV, and I'm pretending I'm gonna, actually message some guy and ask him about hey, what's in that thing, and then actually buy it. But it's a hobby, looking at Marketplace and
No, it's an
pretending.
addiction. It's
Yeah.
not not a hobby.
But from what I saw, a lot of these guys had gotten out of the class and they're selling these cars, which was supposed to be an affordable division, which is part of the reason you got into it. They're selling these cars for seven, eight, nine, $10,000, and it's a little four-cylinder economy car. That it shouldn't be that much money. And cages cost money, fire suppression systems, all that costs money, but now it's basically $10,000 base entry to get into that class. And I
Yeah.
think a lot of these guys, between what they were putting into the engines and the ECUs that you weren't supposed to be tampering with anyway, I think a lot of these guys probably had 12, 15, maybe upwards of $20,000 into a car, and they realized, hey, I can make a mini stock for that money. I can make a street stock for less than that money, and maybe tires last a little longer. I mean, some of the crashes too in this class have been a lot more severe. The cars are going, just an extra 5 or 6 miles an hour faster, and these
Yeah,
little cars,
and they've been totaling some cars, which
yeah,
doesn't usually happen in this class.
little unibody car, yeah, you can't really just take a front clip and over end off of it. Pretty much the car's never going to be straight again after some
Yeah.
of these crashes.
So that's a little bit of our background, our first races. If you guys like, we can go into deep dives into any one of that in a future video. Please comment below, let us know, and let us know what you'd like us to talk about going forward. Um, so we do still race at Monadnock Speedway, short track asphalt. I have a Eclipse that I'm racing right now in the pure stocks. I'm looking to get into street stocks next year if I can get a ride. Um, it's hard to find cars that are compatible and competitive, especially when you are trying to keep it in a certain budget. We still do the 24 hours of lemons. We'll definitely be talking about that in the future. And basically, right now, I just want to give you a quick rundown of, if you guys subscribe and like and watch my videos, what you're going to see on the channel. Behind me, if you could barely see that red, that is my 1978 Cutlass. It has an old stock car racing engine in it. I've put in a uh, roller cam and built it up a little bit. I'm trying to make a street legal drag car out of it. So that's going to be a project you guys are going to see in the future. I do also have, like I said, that Eclipse, but going forward, I might have another circle track car if that's something you guys are interested in. And for my kind of cruising car, but it's garaged this year, I have a 1985 442 that I'm trying to keep as stock as I can. It's a little hard with those cars getting parts for them, but that's what you're going to see on my side. And you want to tell us about your project cars?
And we have joint ownership of a 95 Lexus SC400, which has had its fair share of problems. We're currently rewiring the whole car, essentially putting a Holly Terminator X ECU in it. This is our Lemons car. It's, attempted a budget racing car. Um, if you look into these things, it's a great platform, but currently, like a new ECU for it, $700. Holly Terminator X is $725. So when we looked at what we were spending on, ignition coils, modules,
Well, and that's the thing too. On this channel, we are not going to bullshit you guys. If you're interested in any of these things, we will tell you the actual real cost,
yeah,
which is another whole lemons videos. We'll probably call it the ugly truth of lemons.
yeah,
Jay, if you see this by any chance, we love you. Thank you for the
everything's
series.
everything's
But
been $500 or less. Yeah, these prices are made up for Lemons purposes. But no, we just realized that we were spending more money on and more lost track time, and spending money on race weekends where the car wasn't working, and we've got almost a 30-year-old electronics in the car. So essentially,
gotta go.
we're wiring the thing up for a new style ECU, um, going with a coil unplug design because we've had a lot of spark issues. Um, but yeah, that'll be probably a lot of videos on that thing while we get it running, while we go through the wiring process. We're currently throwing an alternator in it because the mouse decided it wanted the wire sheathing more than we did over the winter, and we've had our fair share of run-ins with all sorts of issues like that because we've got garages, but we don't have enough space for everything. Sometimes my wife wants to park in our garage, and the race car gets kicked out. So it's all this fun stuff. It's not just a project; it's a project that turns into just doing things over and over and beating your head up against the wall and doing things more than necessary. Because when I went to do the alternator, the regulator plug was completely chewed up, and this could even lead back to some issues we had with electronics on that car.
Yeah.
So we're gonna kind of be doing some how-to videos, stuff like that. Anytime I look something up that we're doing on the car, and it doesn't have like a how-to on it, we'll try and do something. I've also got a Subaru BRZ. It's 2013 in my garage that I bought wrecked from insurance auto auctions. Um, and my plan originally with that was to take that motor. It's a good motor in it. Buy a car with
So
a
if you
blown
need a
motor.
motor, let us know.
Yeah.
Message us.
No, but I think my plan right now is to buy one that needs a motor, put this motor in it, and flip that, and that'll pay a little bit towards the LS swap for this thing. Or if we decide to go another route, we might just say screw electronics, screw everything. Let's just put a built-up Chevy 350 and like a Muncie
See,
four-speed in it.
that's my vote for this thing.
Yeah,
I think showing up to a track day in the 2013 BRZ
yeah,
and popping the hood, and you see that huge air cleaner, and everything is just cable, and there's
yeah,
no electronics that work normally.
yeah. No fly-by-wire. No. The thing is with all the whole CAN system and that, and you're not having any gauges work. You're not having. I mean, even power steering.
We can
I've got
put
to
in our own
figure out.
gauges to that engine.
Yeah, no, we'd have to just get the car completely and just start with a shell and say, okay, here we go. And the thing is, that platform, I love those cars. The 200 horsepower FA20 is, kind of a sore subject about those things. But, even still, people rant and rave about Miatas. And, I think the highest horsepower Miata might have 142 horsepower. So you're still dealing with a lot more
Well,
power.
we do race with some guys that have what the 302 and Coyote engines
Yeah, like 302. There's a
in
few different
their Mazda
swaps.
Miata. There's a lot of work to be done, but
Yeah.
those things fly. The only negative I would say is they have to do a lot of suspension work
Yeah, well, you're adding
because they
a fair
end up.
amount of weight. The good thing about this platform, the BRZ, the FRS, the 86 twins, is while you do lose a little bit of center of gravity when you do a motor swap like this, um, you really don't lose too much of your weight bias because the FA20 is such a heavy engine. I think it's like 420 or maybe 480 pounds fully dressed. If you do an all aluminum LS, I believe you lose weight, on the
Yeah.
car. So it's a great platform. It's I've had a kid about a year ago, so I've had this car for 18 months. The kid's 14 months old. The car has I've put about 6 hours into it so far, so it's been great timing for that thing. But it's we have other projects that we are working on currently, and this thing is more of just a you know if I pull the motor out right now, I have nowhere to put it. So
Yeah,
I
so we're a little on a
yeah.
holding
So
pattern,
I think
but
again, if I buy a one with a blown motor, which there seems to be no shortage of on Marketplace. I actually pull the trigger on one, get it up in my garage. It's one of the simpler swaps of on a modern engine.
we say
Um,
that, but we've done like swaps of the
Not swap, sorry, just replacements. If I pull
24-hour
one right
projects
next to
turn
it,
into 18 months.
yeah.
But
Well, still 24 hours. We only had 8 hours here, 8 hours there in a year period or something. But this is a should be a day swap in and out. But even that, we could pop it because that was something I looked up, couldn't find anywhere on someone just removing a whole FA20. I know people have been quoted like $6,000 to $8,000 for garages to do it, and it's a
it's a lot.
Subaru. I mean, you used parts from other Subarus for the last 20 years, and it's a front engine rear drive platform, so it's really not something we've dealt with our fair share of front engine front wheel drive cars that quite the pain in the ass to
Oh yeah,
separate the motor and transmission. This thing's probably 6 or 8 bolts, a lot of electronics, and we come from old school V8 Chevy 350s and just small blocks, and that was kind of what we dealt with for years. So sometimes we run
yeah.
into a little bit of
Anything with
electronics
electronics is still
plugs, and yeah,
our bane.
I've
But
been getting into it a lot more, obviously with this, the Terminator X. I'm looking at the pinouts and figuring things out. I do a little bit of that stuff for work. And it's been 8 years now. I should have picked up a little bit of electronics, but yeah, we're kind of trying to get into the newer world of fuel injection and
When we have a buddy that's been helping us, Kyle Willis from Willis
Willis
Fabrication.
fabrication.
That's been kind of teaching us. He hates anything carbureted, so he's
Yeah.
been trying to get us into the 21st century.
Yeah.
But
So whenever we need to send a project up there, he likes to guide us into something that he's going to be able to actually
work
on and not want to shoot himself in the foot. So anytime we have something that we think we're going to carburet or something like that, he's like, but you just look at this Holly sniper system. This is probably the best way to go for diagnostic purposes. And
yeah, he wants one on that Cullis.
yeah.
But
Yeah, and even the BRZ, that's the least he wants. If he wants me to go like full LS3, fully electronic CAN integration, and just like still use the push to start button and everything. But yeah, we've got projects. Some of them are still up in the air about which direction we're going to go into. But
and if you guys want to comment, and we can see what you guys are interested in seeing and try to do that.
yeah, and if you want to make sexually suggestive comments, that's fine too. We read them all.
I do read them all.
Yeah. All 7 of them. It doesn't take too long. So
that hurts. But all right, I think that's gonna about wrap it up for today. If you liked what you saw and you want to contribute to the channel, please comment on what you guys want us to do going forward. And if you didn't like it, thank you for watching. We appreciate it. And that's it for now. All right.
Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe.
That's going to be in the end screen when the Lexus pulls up. Please like, subscribe, and share.
Like every or anything. I'm trying not to get too into
but
talking
it's hard
shit and be
because
like,
we're actually
this
deep
asshole.
diving more than
and the fucking tech guys don't know what they're talking
some
about.
of this